I'm Mark Ronson, and this is the FADER Uncovered podcast. In this interview series, I'll be speaking with some of the most influential and groundbreaking musicians in the world, from genre-defining stars to avant-garde trailblazers, about their lives and careers. Each episode will be rooted in these musicians' iconic FADER cover stories, an institution that over the past 2 decades has told artists stories like no other. The podcast is a chance for us to talk about the past, present, and future, reflecting on their breakthroughs, diving into their lives when their covers hit shelves, and discussing what the future might hold now. And it's an opportunity for me to speak to some of the artists I most admire. This is the FADER Uncovered with Mark Ronson. Today, my guest is DJ Premier. It's impossible to overstate his importance to hip-hop history. Actually, just music history in general. And it would also be impossible for me to overstate the importance of his musical influence on my own career. He's my favorite hip-hop producer of all time. And in fact, for the first 10 years of my career, I was just a straight DJ Premier clone. All I knew how to do was emulate this man, because like millions of hip-hop heads, I was in love with his beats. He single-handedly changed the sound of New York rap in the 90s with his signature boom-bap style. Rugged drums, rare samples chopped up in his MPC drum machine and replayed in his signature feel. Iconic choruses he would construct from impeccably scratching snippets of other voices, stringing together the phrases like some kind of musical ransom note. A few words from Erykah Badu here, a couple lines from Wu-Tang, and voila, he would make some iconic Mos Def chorus like the one in Mathematics. His sound has been imitated innumerable times, but it's never the same as the real thing. That beat that I talk over at the beginning of each episode, that is a DJ Premier beat. Funky, emotive, New York to the core. Premier came into the game in the late 80s with the rapper Guru, and they formed the group Gang Starr. And album by album, they cemented their reputation as one of the greatest rap groups of all time. Premier's musical evolution album to album being a huge part of that. And then, as an outside gun for hire, he gave Nas, Biggie, Rakim, KRS, Jay-Z some of their greatest records ever, and certainly their grimiest. He was the go-to hitman when you needed that gutter song that somehow could also play in the club and on the radio. Premier graced the cover of the FADER very early on. In fact, it was issue number 2, winter 1999. It was a joint feature with Zack de la Rocha of Rage Against the Machine and Reverend Run of Run DMC, of course. The cover itself is so remarkable it almost seems photoshopped. You can't believe these 3 people were in the same place at the same time. It's a fantastic picture, and I highly recommend Googling it. We've crossed paths quite a bit over the past few years. He was a very big part of Watch the Sound, the music doc series I hosted and co-created for Apple TV. But I still can't help the superfan part of me from geeking out when I'm in the presence of this master. I mean, you only have to ask him about how he made New York State of Mind for Nas, one of the hardest beats of all time. And before you know it, you're in the middle of some story that literally feels like hip-hop history is playing out, like it's a movie. Yeah, me and Nas and Big, we were all hanging out at that time, and Nas needed a ride to the studio, and he played me this demo beat that Q-Tip had for One Love, so I knew that I had to up my game, and I went back and I made New York State of Mind. I mean, this is Mount Olympus stuff to us fans. To Premier, it's just his life.
He said, yo, I got to go to Puff Studio. Can you give me a ride? I was like, yeah. That's when we were all hanging out. 94,
yeah.
Me, Big, we were all hanging all the time because I lived in the neighborhood, in Big's neighborhood.
Yeah.
So it was like dropping him off was no big deal. He said, yo, pop this cassette in. Q-Tip just gave me this joint. He said it's just pause mixed right now, but he's going to program in the drum machine. And when I put it in my car, you just hearing that boom, 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 boom. And you know, it was kind of jumping.
Yeah.
You know, some of them were on, some were off. We were like, where the fuck did I didn't know who the Heath brothers were at that time.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn it, I got to change my beat. Because The World Is Yours already had me open. But like I said, I was there for that, to watch Pete lay the scratches, like just hit record, and he just did it through the whole song. Even the It's Yours on the hook, that's not programmed in. He's just hit record, and he's just doing it. And no Serato, just the record.
Yeah.
And so if it was a little off or whatever,
Yeah.
it was one take.
Yeah.
And we were like, wow, this shit is dope. And then boom.
So I know because I heard Q-Tip go on the Cypher Sounds Rosenberg on one Epstein podcast, and I didn't know this. And
Memory Lane.
Yeah. Oh, was Memory Lane originally different too? Because that's
Yeah.
what they were talking about. Q-Tip
When
called in and
Q-Tip
was
said
like,
Premier might get mad.
yes, that was it.
He was incorrect.
Okay.
I didn't put it out there.
He was confusing it with maybe with Represent in the remix.
Not,
Okay.
not at all. Memory Lane, the album version is. I didn't like the sample. Nas liked it.
Okay.
Because he was making fun of the cover.
The Reuben Wilson.
The Reuben Wilson. He said, "Look at this dude." They
Yeah.
laughing at him. We're thumbing around. We find the sample, and I'm like, "Nah, I want some hard shit." And he goes, "We already got some hard shit. We got New York State of Mind. This is different. We ain't got nothing like this." I said, "Let me hear how you rap to it." And when he did the rhyme, I was like, "Whew, this is dope." So with that said, we went with it. And then I said, since your album is out now for the streets and the DJs and mix show guys, since we were still heavy on running radio, let me do a Mean remix. And that's a remix. Tip said that that's the original, and it wasn't.
Right.
But I ain't correct him. I was like, fuck it.
Going back to Represent for a second, I heard you tell this story about how, and I never knew this, that Nas would go in the booth with 10 or 15 people with him, and they were in the booth, even not just doing the chorus, represent, like they would just be always in there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yo, pass that thon. I'm like, yo, you got to be quiet.
Right.
We're recording. All right. Yo, pass the Annie done. I'm like, yo, you gotta be quiet.
Yeah.
Because he was so excited to be there, and it was fine, but that's what really happened.
You know, there's a lot of, I don't know, stories and stuff in you. Just when you just said that, like, it was me and Nas and Big and Puff, and we were all rolling together. Obviously, after that shit happened, that there were beefs and those relationships splintered, but that's just so incredible to me that everybody was just, and you were almost like the glue between a lot of the stuff going on.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, because I was around Large Professor so much, I'd be around Nas. I'd go to all the sessions when he was still programming One Time for Your Mind. And when he did, it ain't hard to tell because he had it using just the regular Human Nature just throughout the whole shit. And then he's like, yo, I'm going to make it a little more funkier.
Yeah.
And then he did the So I was there when he's redoing it because the other one was already just kind of leaked out just for people to play. And then when he redid it with the new drums and the boom, boom, ka, boom, but I was like, ooh, man. Because he was so consistent. Halftime had us fucking blown away. Obviously, we all know what Barbecue did for us. So I was just studying Large. We were together a lot. We go over Ms. McKenzie's house, which was K-Cut and Sir Scratch from Main Source. That was their mother, and she owned the label that they were on before they went to Wild Pitch. So I'd be over there all the time. And then I helped them get on Wild Pitch because Stu was like, yo, I really want them. Can you put in a good word for me? And I put in a good word and say, yo, he's going to really work your record, which he did.
Because you've talked about Marley being a big influence, but was Large Professor also somebody that you
Big
learned
time.
Production from?
Because
as well?
Guru was like, yo, you got to check this group called Main Source. And this guy, Large Professor, raps and he does the beats. And he played me Adam and Think. So once I heard that, because Guru was always tapped into who's new. Mm-hmm. He put me on to them.
And you had already done the first Gang Starr album, No More Mr. Nice Guy, or was this about the same time?
No,
okay.
we were still talking about me joining the group around that time. So I wasn't officially in the group yet because I was still with the group that I wanted to get signed, but they didn't like my MC.
Yeah. The other crazy thing as well is that, you know, I'm such a fucking huge fan and you think you know everything there is to know. But one story that I just read about that blew my mind was at one point, because J. Rue obviously came out, was on this super conscious, anti-flossy thing. And he even did the song You're Playing Yourself. And he was going right at Bad Boy. But
No,
I didn't
that
realize...
one wasn't. That one
Oh, that one wasn't?
Nah, they thought it was. The only reason why we did it that way is because we were about to put out this exact same loop. Same way as Players Anthem.
Yeah.
Same exact way that Clark did it. So the fact that they beat us to it, and we didn't know they were coming out with a version. So when it came out, we was like, damn, this shit is dope.
Yeah.
And we were still all cool with each other.
Yeah.
So Rue was like, damn, man, we were just getting ready to put that same loop out. As he's getting near the end of Wrath of the Math being finished, we always do singles last.
Right.
So when it got down to like the last one or two songs,
Right.
I was like, yo, I still want to use that sample. I said, let me see if I can chop it a different way. Took the end, put it at the front, put the front at the end, and just chopped it, and then chopped the bottle clinking.
Yeah.
So I had that on the pad, so I could do the ting, 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 ting. You know, obviously the creative brain part was always just a thing that competitively that how my brain always worked because that's how Pete and all them were. Next thing you know, they're like, oh, he's hating. It's like, no, it has nothing to do with play. It had nothing to do with Players Anthem and you're playing yourself. None of that.
Right.
None of that. One Day was even specific. It's whoever we spoke on, he spoke on, but I supported it.
Yeah.
And I still do. Especially for at that time. I mean, we were younger, so we were on some fuck that shit because that's part of hip hop.
Yeah.
You know? And all he was doing was saying what hip hop looks like right now.
Yeah.
And that's what it was.
It's kind of amazing too because there's that story I never heard that you guys were all in the early days on tour together and Jeru says it. What was the story about going in and you guys are all staying in this motel and Big is just naked on the bed?
Well, he's in his boxers.
Okay.
Yeah, he wasn't butt ass.
Right. And he's eating.
But he has a big bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken, and
Biggie
and then everybody's in the room, in his room, and you know, cause we all smoke together, smoke some good blunts, and we're about to drive back to New York. We had already done the gig, and J. Rue was just starting to be on this whole, I'm not eating meat no more.
Yeah.
I'm changing my diet. So he was like, yo, Big, you need to stop eating that chicken, man. You know, you need to change your diet and get healthy. He goes, man, fuck that. My name is Biggie, not Bark Kim. So, you know, and that's how funny Big is, man. Like,
I love this picture of like Jeru, like really concerned, like, Big man, you got to watch your health. You got to be around for a while.
Yeah. And like, my name is Biggie, not Bark Kim. I was like, this motherfucker's hilarious, man. Him and Big L are just fucking naturally funny, yeah.
Because obviously you did so much incredible shit with Biggie, but the Kick in the Door story as well is amazing because that was then the beat that you made that Biggie kind of wanted to go back at. You were the reason that everybody was settling that shit on wax in some ways as opposed to...
Yeah.
You were like almost like the UN, but what was that story? Puffy didn't originally like the beat to Kick in the Door?
He didn't originally like the beat, and it's crazy because today is the anniversary of Ready to Die, 27 years?
Is it? Wow.
Yeah, 27 years, right? I think. Puff's office called and told me that my Ready to Die plaque is ready, so come pick it up at the office. So I'm all happy, like, ooh, I got a platinum plaque. Going to pick it up. And I had already dropped off the beat for Big to hear on the little 10-minute cassettes.
Yeah.
You know, so when I got in the reception office, they gave me my plaque, and I'm walking to the elevator, and Puff sees me, goes, man, I need to speak to you real quick. He said, yo, man, I need you to work on another beat for Big because I'm not feeling that one that you dropped off. I'm like, you know, that beat is dope, Puff.
Yeah.
And he's like, nah, I'm not feeling it. He said, nah, I need that tunnel banger. I said, it is a tunnel banger.
Yeah, because Unbelievable was just, it was such an incredible, because it was the B-side, Did You See? It gave all this thing, so Puff is just thinking like, yeah, of course. So go ahead.
And Puff's got a good ear. I mean,
Right.
you know, when it comes to producing, I know he's not tapping the drum machines, but he does understand. He understands hits.
Yes.
And you got to tip your hat to him on that, you know. So he understands the vision of how to make a superstar.
Yeah.
So my thing is, Big always said, and Jay, all of them, yo, I need that gutter joint from you to round out my album. They may have a radio record that wasn't in my lane, but when they need the gutter, which is what I'm a fan of, as a fan, that's what I want to make. So when you need that gutter, come to me. And of course, I was one of the go-tos. So to me, Kicking the Door beat sounded like that same lane.
It was. I mean, it was incredible.
So when he said, yo, nah, man, I need you to make something else, I said, okay, give me another day and I'll make something else. I wasn't even like, no, I'm not doing it. I was like, cool, let me go back to the drawing board and see what I come up with. I'll bring something tomorrow. And he's like, cool. That was it. Maybe 3, 4, 5 o'clock that afternoon, Big calls me directly and says, yo, when he tells me to come in tonight, I'm like, yo, man, I told Puff I'll do the beat tomorrow. And he goes, nah, I want to rap on the one that you left this morning. I said, but Puff don't like that one. He goes, fuck that, I'm going to go in. He goes, I got to get at your man, though. Yeah. I was like, all right, it's rap.
Yeah.
You know, and like you said, it ain't turning violent. Say what you got to say.
Yeah.
And
when he said your man, he was talking about J. Rue?
Yeah, of course. Okay. Yeah, because him and J. Rue was close. You know what I'm saying? We all were. Me, him, Dap, Mel, all the Gang Starr Foundation, Suge. I remember we would all go down there and hang out with them on the weekends because they would always be there on Fulton and Washington. And we were Washington between Lafayette and Green. So we were right down. And we always go there to get our 40s because we were all 40 drinkers back then.
And Big was when he was starting out, he came to you, he would always ask you, didn't he ask you, that's how you Unbelievable came about? He was like, I need a record for you. And you were kind of like, I'm got a lot on my plate right now. Yeah.
I just didn't have time based off of, because what it was, when we were going to maybe the Gavin or Jack the Rapper or one of those, Big had already given us cassettes of the earlier versions of Ready to Die.
Yeah.
So.
And what was on it? What did you hear?
Warning was on it. I lost my mind because Easy Mo B lived down the block. We all lived in the same neighborhood and we all hung.
Yeah.
Lady of Rage and Nikki D lived together.
Wow.
And shout to Terrible T, that's Nikki's sister. The three of them lived together.
Wow.
I remember they used to have purple Def Jam jackets with the purple leather sleeves. And I remember one day I walked up on Rage and said, yo, one day I'm going to rob you for that jacket. She goes, oh, yeah? And she pulls out a 45. And then Nikki D pulls out hers and says, yeah, that me too. Try to take the jacket. You know, just joking around. But that's how, how they were
I
rolling.
thought Lady of Rage, I just assumed she was at West Coast,
She
California.
wasn't at Death Row yet. Nah, she wanted me to help her get her demos popping. But at the time, she was having me loop up Michael Jackson stuff. And I was like, nah, you need to do some hardcore shit. She said, but I could do hardcore over that. And I was like, nah. And we just ended up just still being cool as just friends and hanging together. And next thing you know, she said, yo, I'm going to the West Coast. I'm going to find Dre and I'm going to get a deal out there. And I'm thinking she's just talking because she's frustrated.
Right.
She goes, watch, I'm going to get a deal. We had a concert, a Gang Starr show at the Palladium. This is months and months and months and months later. And we go out there, and I'm like, is that her waiting for us at the backstage entrance? And she's got, the yellow jacket, and there's that security on the back with the black letters. I'm like, yo, what you doing? You made it out here? She goes, yeah, I just got signed to Dre. It's a new label called Death Row. And she's like, he's coming out with a record called The Chronic. You're going to be seeing it soon. And then all of a sudden, The Chronic dropped, and I saw the Death Row inmates at the bottom left corner. Yeah. And it said Lady of Rage. I was like, yo, she's on there.
And then she's
I heard High Powered.
Right.
When High Power came on, she's the first verse. I said, she made it. Yeah. Next thing you know, she's on everything. The Let Me Ride video, making the Low Rider hop and all that. I was like, wow. And then she was on her way.
She's incredible.
But during that time, it was Rage, Chubb Rock, Nikki D, Easy Mo B, Big, April Walker from Walker, where it was 2 blocks behind us. Another girl named Nikki Nicole, who I toured with. She lived down the block. And that's pretty much it. But we were all popping at the same time, even though Rage wasn't yet. But Nikki D was, because she was the first lady of Def Jam. Yeah, that was a good time.
And then Big was like, "Hey, let me get a beat."
So when the first Ready to Die was done, Puff had it updated. That's what it was. A new Machine Gun Funk. The original album had "Come On, Motherfuckers" that Lord Finesse did, and they took that one off. So. When he said, man, my album's done, I updated it. I just need that one primo banger. And I was like, man, there's no way to even squeeze it because I make them right on the spot, which you've witnessed. Yes. So I don't have things just sitting there to just play them. He's like, man, I don't care if you take Impeach the President and just put some notes on it. And I was like, yeah, come meet me right now. And that's
how it happened?
Yes, dead ass.
Fuck. I didn't even think that's because I forget that's those drums. And then you took the note, you just took some little notes and put them on the pads, different tunings or something?
Different tunings, yeah. Just, and he was like, yo, he was the one that said, yo, put the R. Kelly line Unbelievable from Your Body's Calling in there. I said, man, that shit might be out of pitch. And it is.
It is, but it's perfect.
It works, yeah.
I mean, it truly is unbelievable. This song by Biggie Smalls, produced by DJ Premier, is one of the greatest, strangest, almost atonal hip-hop bangers of all time. And it almost never was. I also love this story because it's a testament and an insight into Biggie's musicality. Impeach the President is an obscure 1970s soul song with a very iconic, isolated drum part at the top. Biggie knew that all Premier had to do was maybe sample those drums and quote-unquote play some notes over it, and it could be something. I mean, my mind is still blown. I mean, this is a song I've been listening to for 30 years, and this is its genesis story. And the fact that Premier's sound and style, the way he would take the same sample of a piano and make different tunings of it, and essentially make a new melody from that one tiny sample. He was so good at it, and obviously firing from another level at that point in his career. That sweet spot when you're just in the zone and everything you do is magic. He could fire up that machine and in 15 minutes cook up some banger that still moves us 30 years later. That combination of raw talent, Biggie's vision, and insane lyrical skill and presence, with Premier's gutter production sound, it's like 1 + 1 = 2 million. I'm sure many people think Valerie was my idea to cover, but I actually didn't know the song until Amy Winehouse brought it to me. I didn't even get it until we started recording it. I love hearing these stories because it's music history, but it's also insight into how an artist's vision can inspire the producer, taking even an established visionary like DJ Premier into a place they didn't see coming. Biggie was obviously so much more than just a rapper, and the songs he and Primo made together are all-time classics. Back after a break.
Him and Jay-Z would say the same thing. Okay, vocals is good. All right, just do the preem thing and give me a mix. They leave. They're not sitting there waiting.
That's incredible. And also, it is a little uncharacteristic. I never knew that was Big's idea to use the R. Kelly, because usually you don't go for like an obvious R&B tune except for maybe the Aaliyah and A Million, which is so great.
Yeah.
It's amazing to think that Biggie had that idea. And then it just reminded me of something that I also didn't know about your creative process, that you say sometimes you hear the melody in your head before you even know what sample you're going to find.
I think that's just some DJ shit, man. I mean, especially when it comes to cuts, because either the artist, they might say, I want to, like Jay always said, here's the song I want to do, and he would describe it. So I would always make sure the music matched that description.
And he would do the verses. Sometimes he would call you on the phone and just do
it on the phone. The only ones he did on the phone were The Evils, because that was the first time we really did something. A Friend of Foe, I'm just a D&D program, and he hears the beat, and he's like, yo, turn the mic on, let's go. And he just did it. Bring It On, I'm going to have Jazz and my man Sauce Money. He's from Marcy. They're going to spit on it. It's going to be all three of us. So I just did a beat, and they were like, yeah. And I even thought it was a little too emotionally laid back, and they were like, nah, we won't rhyme to that. Yeah. And they just went in and did it. But yeah, The Evils, he rhymed it over the phone. He gave me all the scratches in order how he wanted it to be, all the way to I Can't Die, I Can't Die. He did all of that on the phone.
Two of the obviously greatest rappers of all time, considered two of the greatest debuts in music history, A Reasonable Doubt and Illmatic. Did you have a feeling that these are just like incredibly special people who are going to be like changing the face of music? Or you just in it because there's like 800 other sessions going on that week, and you just like, was there moments when you were just like, this is something?
No, it was definitely because of who they were. Because they're younger than me and they were on the come up. When KRS called and said, let's do a project called Return of the Boom Bap, he's one of my idols that I'm like, wow, KRS wants to work with me. I was happy Jay and Big and Nas wanted to work with me either, but they're new guys that are actually probably looking at the opposite, where it's like, wow, I get to work with Premier.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not looking at them, like down at them, like, yeah, y'all better be lucky. Not in that way, but that's why it was easier for me to approach them. But if Austin Rakim wants to join, I'm like, oh my goodness. It's a different thing where with Big and Jay and Nas, it was like, okay, come on in, because they were looking to get to where we were.
And something else that I hadn't really considered ever until I saw this quote from you, it was really cool, and it was very beautiful. Also, like giving Guru that credit. It was like if Guru hadn't have really encouraged the more left field side of your music and allowed you to do these beats that maybe you wouldn't have found your sound, and you wouldn't have had the confidence to then go and be this superstar solo producer as well at the same time.
Yeah, that's the thing with Guru. I could do experimental stuff. I couldn't give it to those other artists. They'd be like, nah, I need that banger, that one that's going to hit in the club or just hit in the streets. With Guru, he'll take Robin Hood Theory. That was the first song we recorded on Moment of Truth. Yeah. Like I said, we always do singles last.
Yeah.
So Robin Hood Theory was a beat I just always liked. And it wasn't something I could give to another MC that's looking to get a track for their album. But I knew with Guru, it would work. And as soon as he heard it, he wrote it. Boom, done.
Yeah.
We did You Know My Steez and Militia last. And Casey and JoJo, Royalty, we did those last.
There must have been beats where Guru was like, damn, how did you give that one away? Or was it was
Yeah, but the thing is, it wasn't like I gave it away because I made it.
You made them on the spot
when they got to the lab.
Yeah, he must have teased you like, yo, you can say that for
but
me.
The thing is, and I always say this to people, it ain't like I'm giving like Nas and KRS and Big and Jay better records. When we do Gang Starr now, I'm on the cover with you.
Yeah,
I'm in the videos with you. We got to have bangers too. And we did.
Yeah.
Every album.
Yeah.
Every album has successful singles. Dwick, Just to Get a Rep, You Know My Steez, Manifest, Royalty, Militia.
No, you could. There's no doubt that some of your greatest tracks ever, Gang Starr. I mean, All for the Cash is one of my favorite. Like, no, absolutely. But I just was
full clip.
Yeah.
Like they've all been successful. And then again, it ain't like I had New York State of Mind, and I just held on to it till I got with Nas. It was never made. We're looking around for samples. Nas is sitting right there with me at D&D with the turntables on a big old TV, the wooden TV case.
Oh, yeah,
and I'm just thumbing, and all of a sudden we're here. On Joe Chambers, and me and Nas like, ooh. I said, hold on. Put it in the 950 and the MPs to trigger it. And he's like, that's it. 'Cause our only part I had was just the beginning part. The ding, 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 ding. I had that already, but that's all we had.
Yeah.
So I just kept letting that run. And then when we heard the piano, and then I hit that again to see if it'll fit. You know, you always like to just fly it in, nothing laterally, bring it back, fly it in, pitch it down a little bit, it's a little too fast, fly it in, a little bit more, fly it in. Okay, that's about the right way it's going to fit. Throw it in the sampler and boom.
I mean, if ever there was obviously a song that just sounded like if there was ever going to be a documentary about New York in the 20th, 21st century, New York State of Mind really is. Like, I mean, that's why it's at the beginning of the Apple show on sampling. As you see the backdrop of New York and subways, it's forever just linked to that. And you are, in a lot of ways, maybe with two other people, the architect. For me, you're the greatest. You're as far as the rank of architect of the New York sound, and you are from Texas. Like, that is the crazy. You've never been shy about saying where you're from and how you got here, but that is just always the wildest thing to me. The person that is most synonymous with the sound of New York hip hop and the most influential person ever for me in it is from Texas.
Yeah, country boy.
Yeah,
at least from 10, 11 years old. Me, my sisters, my dad, my mom, we all trekked to New York for the summer, for the whole summer.
You would always come.
Every year. That was our thing. Every summer's coming, school's out. We're going to Sumter, South Carolina, where my dad's from. Then we go to North Carolina, to Raleigh, to see my Aunt Nettie and my Uncle Paul. That's why they're all tatted on here, because they were kind of part of the journey of what led me to New York. And Grandfather Bill was my mom's father, who lived in Brooklyn. And that's why the whole New York thing was just normal by the time I was 13, 14, 15. Yeah. It's not like, wow, I'm in New York. I'm so used to it.
Yeah.
So I know where to go now. I know how to take the train. You know what I'm saying? My grandfather would be afraid that I would go, but I was one of those like, no, I can do it. I can move around. No one's going to bother me. And no one ever did try anything. I was always fascinated by all the crazy shit that you see on the train.
Yeah. But probably Texas also had it was probably good that you had that experience coming up, because you had all these other musical influences and all this stuff coming on. Like, you always talk, like when we've talked about music before, you said like not only Parliament Funkadelic and George Clinton, but like new wave and punk, and because you worked in a record store
and we used to go to this club called Numbers, and they would have Flock of Seagulls, and they'd have Echo and the Bunnymen, and they'd play just all that type of music. They'd play Bauhaus and Joy Division and a Fad Gadget. I was just into all of that shit.
My God,
yeah, man. Yeah. I was into that. I'll shout to Connie Carr, wherever you are. She put me up on all that. She put me up on the Smiths. And I saw Morrissey about 4 years ago now. Yeah. He was at the Garden, and Blondie opened up for him. And I was like, wow, Blondie's opened up for Morrissey. Yeah. And I saw the Smiths in Houston right before they broke up after the Queen is Dead album. Yeah. Like, I was there. I was at Devo. I even went to Devo when they did Irving Plaza about 5 years ago. I was just looking at the footage on my phone because I was filming everything and got to meet everybody. This was before Bob One died, so,
I think I went to a Devo show as well in like 2009, and I got drunk and wore the flower pot hat.
The Energy Dome. Yeah. They're called the Energy Dome.
What's called the Energy Dome?
Yeah, I was die hard. I joined the fan club. Because when I went to their concert back in the 80s, at that time, I think Mark Mothersbaugh, who's one of the most incredible producers, writers, creators of all time, and to be from Ohio and to be that bugged out, I totally get them.
Yeah. It's funny you said the Ohio. You just reminded me when I first met the Black Keys, because they're from Ohio, and I was like, obviously Bootsy's from Ohio. There's different cities had different scenes, but I was like, what was that like? Because as soon as they said Dayton, the first thing that came to mind was Devo. They're like, the Black Keys told me they used to just go outside, like members of Devo's house when they were like young musicians coming up, just like trying to like give the demo tape or get any whatever attention from them. And then Duran Duran told me that I think that was one of the first time they saw synthesizers when they were like 16. Nick Rhodes from Duran Duran went to the the Camden Roundhouse to see Devo. And he just had his mind blown. Like, that was the first time they saw synths and guitars in the way that they used
I'm a Duran Duran junkie. I got to go to the Union of the Snake tour in Texas, and I've never heard people scream to the end of the concert and damn near drown out a big arena like that.
Yeah.
For them, I was always a big Simon Le Bon fan, the way he's a great performer. I love great performers, especially if you're a front man.
Yeah.
And then, Taylor was just cool on the bass. And like Nick never moves. He never looks like he's happy, but he's like the huge sound of what they do, synth-wise. Shout out to one of my classmates, Trey Ellaby, when I went to school in Texas, and he put me on to Duran Duran and the whole Rio thing. I even just found a picture of him with two of our friends from school, and he's like my Duran Duran hairdo. Because I graduated high school in '84, so that was the sound.
Yeah.
We're going to Purple Rain tonight after school, right? Yeah. It's like, because, it just came out.
Yeah.
And we went 8 times. We went to the theater over and over just to see that.
What was the hip hop like? What was coming to Texas at that time? Like all the big stuff, Houdini, I guess.
The Fresh Fest. Yeah, I went to the Fresh Fest at Astro World. It was Rockin' Master Scott and the Dynamic 3. It was Nucleus, Dougie Fresh and the Get Fresh crew featuring MC Ricky D. He wasn't Slick Rick yet. Fat Boys, Houdini, UTFO. Trying to think of who else. Because LL, we went to, our place to go to was the Summit. Everything was at the Summit. When I saw Parliament, the Ozzy Brothers. My mother's a big concert fanatic, so we'd see Quincy Jones, and he brought the Brothers Johnson on, and I was freaking out because I was a big fan of them. Went to Ike Tina Turner. Me and my mom would see Shaka Khan. We saw Confunction.
Wow.
I forgot who the group was opening for Confunction, but somebody in the crowd was tired of waiting for them to come on, and while the other band is on, they kept going, Confunction! Where one of the members of the band keeps looking like yo. Yeah. And then they do 2 or 3 more songs. Confunction! One thing is the drummer. He's looking like, yo, shut the fuck up. Yeah. But man, my mom and I went to, even Michael Jackson once he left the Jacksons, because when we were young, we went to the Jackson 5 concerts maybe every 6 months. They would always be back in Houston.
Did you ever get to work with Michael or meet Michael?
No, I wish I could have, man. And I was standing right there when James Brown rehearsed the year that we did the BET Awards. They didn't have hip hop awards then, and Monique was the host, and we did the tribute to Jam Master Jay that DMC assembled. Mm-hmm. Actually, I got to give myself credit on the assembly. Jesse Collins had other DJs who we highly respect that was going to do it, and he hadn't called them yet, but I'm like, nah. Mm-hmm. It needs to be, Flash was the only one that was already on the list. Mm-hmm. I was like, nah, it needs to be Kid Capri because he brings a certain dynamic. Mm-hmm. You got to put Jazzy Jeff in. There were rumblings like, oh, Jazzy Jeff, what has he done lately? And I'm like, yo, that's Will Smith's DJ. He's New Music Seminar, was it Battle for World Supremacy?
Dude, he's just one of the illest of all time. Jazzy Jeff is just, his routines are just ridiculous.
And rest in peace to John Cossette, who used to do all the Grammys and everything. And I was like, well, I'm out. I don't want to do it. And John Cossette called me directly and was like, hey, I need you to do this. Put it together. I was like, so can I do it my way? He said, yes. And I was like, cool. I called Capri, called Jeff, and it was one of the most memorable things in history of saluting a DJ, which hadn't been done on live television, and that was live and vinyl. And it came out so perfect, man. So that was the same year Michael's going to surprise James Brown and put the cape on him at the end. Now, we knew, but they didn't tell all the staff. So we're there rehearsing, and we see James Brown rehearse. So we already know what's going to happen. I'll never forget, man. We know he's about to come out. And like I said, hardly anybody knows. We're now in the audience, so we had just done our performance, and I'm just watching. And here comes Michael, man. And we're all shaking. Yeah. Like, our hearts are beating because it's like, James had to have been like, wow.
Yeah. What year was that again? Because I remember, I don't remember exactly when.
Shoot, man, that was 2002.
One time I had the privilege of talking to Malcolm McLaren, the legendary impresario who sort of invented punk rock. After the Sex Pistols, the band that he had put together and managed, had just broken up, he came to New York in the early 80s, glum and looking for some new inspiration. By some series of events, I can't remember exactly how, but he ended up at a Bronx Park jam where Africa Bambaataa was DJing. McLaren was absolutely gobsmacked to be in this playground watching hundreds of people, B-boys and B-girls, getting down to the song Cars by Gary Newman. They had no idea who Gary Newman was, but it was just funky and the DJ was playing it and they were getting down. And this has always been the story of early hip-hop. If it's funky, if it's soulful, it's ripe for the playing. The breakbeats, i.e. the songs that serve as the source material for early samples and breakdancing, well, those breakbeats that form the cornerstone of hip-hop come from all ends of the musical spectrum, be it James Brown and Chic or the Monkees' Bo Diddley and Billy Squier with the big beat. Plus, when DJ Premier was growing up in the era of early MTV, you had these weird English bands like Flock of Seagulls and stuff being broadcast into his living room in Texas, which basically seemed as if it was from another planet to him. I've obviously spent so much time thinking about his sound, how it could be so soulful, musical, and jazzy, yet so dirty, tough, and rugged at the same time. Why Premier's sound appeals to both the hip-hop head and the headbanger. Why he's beloved by Jay and Nas, but also Rage and Limp Bizkit. It might have something to do with the digesting of all these influences, running it through the genius filter, which is the DJ Premier sound. Because this cover of the Fader, it's funny because usually when we do these, I always interview people who have been on the cover of the Fader, and there's always a couple of issues, but that apparently is like rarer than the Magna Carta in the Fader office because it's the only one left because it's such a legendary cover. You, Zack, Rocha, and Ron was that a picture? You guys are all shot
we're all
together.
Yep.
That never happens anymore. Whenever you see those sort of like legends
morphed,
covers,
they're morphed in,
everybody's put together. That's Mount Rushmore shit.
And we had so much, for me to be able to just chill with Ron.
Yeah.
I think that's a dream come true, man. And then Zack, I had already gone to a Rage Against the Machine show to see how they performed. And then boom, then come 99, when we dropped the full clip album, they're like, we want you to open up for the Battle of Los Angeles tour. And we went on tour for them for damn near a month. Yeah. The way you see me on stage now yelling and screaming, because of Zack. Right. I was already impressed years prior, but opening up for them, we had to change our songs around. Yeah. Master Pill wasn't working. All the mosh pits wasn't working. And we had Bumpy with us, Suge, and H Stacks from Forbids as part of Gang Starr Foundation. They were like, yo, man, I don't like the way these mosh pit motherfuckers are and all this. I'm like, no, we got to change the songs around. Like Militia, they loved it all the time. Yeah, of course. Because Bumpy's so animated, and he comes with the squirt gun, and he's spraying them, and he's got the mace on a big-ass stick with the little spiked metal balls, and he's just so theatrical. Suge, same thing. So we changed our stuff to like Brainstorm and Tons of Guns. Yeah, just the hard joints. Yeah, so by the fifth show, we were on, and now we're just killing it every night. Yeah. We're all doing arenas. Then we had these big Gang Starr ramps, and Guru's very athletic, Stacks is athletic, so they would run and jump on them. Now they're posted up and they're throwing their fists on, and it was just working. Everything was working. And then at the end of the show, we do You Know My Steez last, and right after we do You Know My Steez, when he goes, Fat Beats they play on, one dope shit put me on, Word is Born, we go, all of us go, You Know My Steez, and try to hold it as long as we can without running out of breath. And the crowd's just going, yeah. And right before we walk off, I say, you know what time it is? Rage, 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 rage. And they just go, rage, rage. And we just one by one walk off, and they're still just going, rage, right? And that's how we did it every night. And we'll see them on the side, Zack and Brad and Tom and Timmy. And they're just sitting there going, whoo, because that means they were always checking. It's the perfect build up. And like, oh my God. So you said that you learned how to like be on the mic and be super amped now. Because of that. Because of the way you had to change the show and that. Yeah. And Guru was never going to be quite that guy to be like, Guru was just always classic. But he knew how to talk to the crowd, and we just had a dope exchange. He's always been good at talking to the crowd, or he'll say be like, sucker be such and such and such and motherfucker, and they're just like, oh, and go right into Tons of Guns. I'm like, put your guns up, and that crowd was with that, but it just worked, man, when we changed our songs around. I went to see this other band that I really liked in like 92 or something, 91, called Maggie's Dream, that were like linked somehow to Lenny Kravitz. They were like a New York band that played 70s funk and soul, and
I went to see them at a benefit in LA, and Rage were also on the bill. I had no idea the album wasn't out for a year at least.
Right.
And I, at that moment, just forgot everything else that I'd come to see the show for. And I was just watching Rage Against the Machine. And I was like, this is like, you know, Tom Morello transforming on the guitar and then the energy and the groove of it. I think every Tuesday I would go to the record store and be like, is Rage Against the Machine out yet? Like my voice hadn't broke. I'd just be like, because you didn't know if you were a kid, like you weren't savvy enough to know. And I remember their very first show, I would always look at the back of the Village Voice, and I remember the first time it said Wetlands, Rage Against the Machine. I was like, I'm going to that fucking show.
Wetlands,
and
that's a small venue
tiny.
too.
And I was in the very front row, and the album had only been out for a week, but I knew all the lyrics, and Zack de la Rocha put the mic into the front row in the middle of Killing in the Name of, and I like jumped, like I pushed everyone out there. I was like, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Like I was such a huge
Man, when they did that on their encore and the whole band, they turn the lights on when they get to the, because you know how it builds up. I won't do what you tell me. I won't do what you tell me. And then he won't even say it. They're just going, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. The whole building, and the lights come on, and then, you know, even at the end, he goes, motherfucker.
Yeah.
And I'm just, dude, I'm talking about like goosebumps. But when we opened up for him, it was us, At the Drive-In, and Anti-Flag.
I just read that too. I didn't realize that At the Drive-In was also on those bills. That's another band
cool
that I
ass
was fucking
dudes,
crazy
man.
about.
Cool. We all were cool. All of the security, because the Rage's security was tight, and it was a trip because every time we got into town, we'd go to a hotel to like drop our bags, because we always had to get to the venue early to go open up, because it got to that point after the first show of setting up and getting everything adjusted. Now they'll just always have our shit set up and ready to go.
Yeah.
Shout to Vic Black of Gang Starr Foundation. He the one that played the drug dealer in Just to Get a Rep.
Oh yeah.
He was our stage manager. And you know, it was expensive to haul up our equipment on an 18-wheeler, you know, because we were getting tour support, but it was Rage's 18-wheeler with all of their equipment. They said the rules is this: we'll let y'all put stuff on our 18-wheeler, but you only have 11 minutes to break down the whole stage. Even though the union helps them break it down, 11 minutes, or you get charged $1,000 a minute for being late setting the stuff back up, because we have to have a certain section in the truck for them to load up their equipment after the show is over. And Black would always have it down in like 7 minutes. And we're talking about big speaker setups. We had couches, because we made it look like D&D, the room. So we had couches on each side with a vocal booth in the middle, where that guru comes out of the vocal booth, steps down the stairs, and comes on stage. And my turntable the whole turntable opens like a door with the Gang Starr logo on it. So it was really, really elaborate. And it was dope, because, you know, now you can sit on the couch and rhyme or hop on, and then we had those ramps with the Gang Starr logo. So it was just amazing to do that and understand the protocol of big tours, because that's not what we're used to. And we learned so much. We just got along so well, the whole squad. It was a dope, incredible. That's why now when you see me on stage, watching how Zack starts shivering and shaking, and he just starts just losing it, I feel that way, but I was too afraid to do it on stage. Now I'm just like, man, and I got to thank Fame from MOP, because he was one like, yo, that's what you need to do that. This is on the Smoking Grooves tour. He's like, yo, you need to be the hype man. Because I would just be like, hey, y'all, y'all ready for Gang Starr? He's like, no, you got to be like, yo, what's up? You know, Fame was like, you got to do that.
That's funny, because that just reminded me of such a random story. But the fact that Fame from MOP saw you just at a show and told you to do something, it just gave me this flashback to, I was playing MOP Downtown Swinger, one of my favorite beats, obviously produced by you of all time. I used to always play it. There's something about when that came in, it was just like the hardest thing. You couldn't play it any moment of the set or any crowd, but if it was the right time and it was the right crowd, that shit would just go off so crazy. And I was playing it was at the Montreux Jazz Festival.
Wow.
I was playing after Eric Sermon, and I was with my friend Daniel Merriweather, this amazing singer who I made a lot of records with. And Dan, if he heard a beat that he liked, and we all had a few drinks by the end of the set, he would come back out and just start singing over the instrumentals. And Dan's singing over Downtown Swinger, and Eric Sermon runs on stage and goes, yo, you need to cut your boy singing over that song right there. And I think that's why I might have even hit you very early on, when I was just like only known really as a DJ. And I think you gave me the instrumental, because it wasn't ever out as an instrumental.
No, it wasn't.
We cut a little demo, but yeah, that MOP those records, I mean, Downtown Swinger is just
man.
one of the best.
And I wasn't always making straight instrumentals, and I would always do a TV track. Plus, with MOP, they were like, we need it for shows.
Yeah.
Even to watch them do their backgrounds.
Yeah.
They'll do all this stuff.
We'll talk about 10 to 15 people in the booth. I mean, the MOP, just the two of them have the energy of 10, 15 people in the booth.
Yeah. Guru used to call them Run DMC on steroids.
Yeah.
To work with them is just one of them. For one, I was fanning out because once I saw How About Some Hardcore video, I was like, these dudes need to be heard.
Yeah.
And that's why I was like, I got to find a way to meet them.
Yeah.
And I was doing BLS at the time, doing the Thunderstorm with Geronimo. We were a straight underground show. We came on 2 hours before Flex, and Flex was the man even then. Flex would even call me in between commercials like, yo, what was that you just played? Because he's coming on after me, so we're not even colliding with each other. I'd be like, Havoc stopped by and brought the Shook ones. He's like, I got that. I said, no, this is part 2. And he's like, is he still there?
So you were one of the first people to play Shook One's part 2 on the radio.
Directly.
Holy shit. Also, I had no idea when I was looking at your Discog today that I forgot that you had produced Peer Pressure, which was the first single off of, which I knew from listening to Stretch and Bobbito, and obviously Shook Ones was their big explosion, but without Peer Pressure, that was a sort of an underground hit on the first record. Like, it's almost like the Fuji La remix on the first Fuji's record. Like, they might not have got to make the score if it wasn't for that. Right. So, I mean, the Nappy Heads remix, so there's a way, in some ways, that Peer Pressure beat kind of like probably at least allow them to make a second album.
Well, Peer Pressure is thanks to Large Professor. He's the one that called me and said, hey, there's this group called Mobb Deep. I did this song called Peer Pressure. Now, on Juvenile Hell album, again, mine is the remix.
Right.
They just switched it, flip-flopped it. They call Large Professor the remix, but Large Professor gave me his version to see if I wanted to work with him.
Yeah.
So when he gave me that, I'm like, I like these kids.
Yeah.
I said, how old are they? He said, man, they're teenagers. They're like 14, 15.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, they rhyming like that about the streets?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want them. So mine is really a remix, and then they said, yo, we like this version. We're going with a video. I was on tour with Gang Starr, so I couldn't be in the video because they wanted me in it. We were in Europe, so they were like, do you mind if we shoot it even though you're not going to be in it? I was like, of course.
Yeah.
And then when it came out with the album, I was like, yo, they did the credit. I'm very credit conscious. I want the spelling right. I want everything mentioned, who engineered it, because I used to look at all the albums and read who's this, who's the producer.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, man, y'all did it wrong. Mine should be the remix and Large Professor's the original. They were like, no, because yours ended up being the single.
Right.
So if we put out remix, it doesn't really coincide with their first single.
Yeah.
I was like, still whack, but because that's how much I want it correct. I don't want anybody miscredited.
Of course.
And I'm still like that to this very day. So, boom, it ended up being the original. But that's a remix.
Also, back to the Zack thing, because that whole issue is really about that era in 99, 2000, when there was this, a lot of hybrid with rock and rap, and you had some really good stuff. I feel like Rage Against the Machine were by far the best and the only one that's really aged very well because they understood the soul of hip hop and it was political music. So
yeah, look at that Lil Kim coming soon.
I know. Which album was that? Was that with the Jump Off?
That had to be.
Shit.
Oh no. Yeah, you're right. Because this is Born Again, December 7th, so he had already passed. So.
Yeah. And you did something on the Born Again.
Yeah, with Red MF, Rap Phenomenon.
Yeah. And you had to have been close with Big, beyond just being in the studio, because I feel like you don't really work with anyone that you don't fuck with as a person.
Absolutely. We were all cool, man, because so much has happened with hanging with Big, besides the records. I'll never forget, I had my 94 BMW, chromed out, dope-ass rims, and me and J. Rue is popping at the time. Sunrise East had just dropped. It is already circulating. Everybody knows the songs. We're driving down Fulton, Big and them just happened to be on the corner, and he stops traffic because we're almost at the stoplight.
Yeah.
Big walks up to my driver's window and goes, Paul, what do I have to do to get one of these? And I said, dude, you're gonna get it. Like, Puff's gonna make sure you're good. Don't worry about it. He's gonna make sure you popping soon. He's like, it's taking too long. I'm like, you gotta be patient, man. Yeah. It's part of the process. You're gonna pop, which you did. And he goes, J. Rue, by the way, if you ever do a video to Brooklyn Took It, I just want to stand next to you and just look hard and not even say nothing. And,
Wow.
and J. Rue goes, all right. And, you know.
It's actually makes my hair stand up to know these like stories.
Yeah, man.
To know that J. Rue had some real genuine huge club records with Come Clean and
Yeah.
the Bitches and everything, but like
Can't
to
Stop
know
the
there was
Profit.
Can't Stop the Profit, to know there was this time when Big was like looking at J. Rue like, dude, you
100%.
where it's at.
100%.
Wow.
None of this is made up. Everything is factual.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Jesus. I mean, stories really do just rain from the sky when you're talking to this man. And thinking of a moment in time where Biggie, unknown but soon to be a giant superstar, was looking up to J. Rue the Damager, a respected artist with a few underground hits. Like J. Rue was the Lord of Brooklyn. Also, what a fork in the road they would soon represent for hip-hop, with Biggie and Puff becoming the symbol of flossiness in this player lifestyle, while J. Rue would deride this very lifestyle in songs like You're Playing Yourself. In a world where rap beefs and allegiances were extremely dangerous, Preem was somehow this beloved character who could walk both sides of the line, simply probably because he was so good, but also incredibly real. In fact, I wonder now talking to him if some physical violence was actually spared by the fact that these artists had these incredible rugged primo beats to air their grievances over sometimes. I mean, the way he tells the story of Biggie turning to him with a wink and saying, you know I'm gonna have to go at your man on this song, right? I mean, wow, it's chills. It's also a joy to watch Primo leaf through this incredibly rare old issue of the Fader, looking at himself some 20 years ago, just being a young man, smoking a blunt at a photo shoot, all these memories flooding in. Even for someone who's been such a part of history, you can tell he doesn't spend time looking back, dwelling on past accomplishments, but it's sort of a pleasure to watch him do so.
Damn, I didn't know I was smoking a blunt right there.
Oh, yeah.
Damn. Because I'm not in, I mean, well, you know what? In the younger days, yeah, you'd see me with a blunt or, you know, we were always weed advocates. But now I never do shit like that. But again, I was young, ignorant. Look at me hitting a fucking blunt.
Also, because we were talking a little bit earlier before, we'll keep it PG, but Patrick Moxie, of course, who I knew from because I was just starting out in the clubs, and he was already had Payday and you guys, but also you guys were swimming at that time through different scenes in New York, not just like the tunnel scene or whatever. Like I'm sure you had, it was probably pretty wild, like what New York in the kind of late 80s, early 90s with all that. I guess it was kind of wild, like fashion models, Russell, like all that shit.
Yeah, before I just met Guru, maybe months prior, I came back to New York for us to record Words I Manifest. It was the first song we ever recorded, and it took off. So when I was now about to get signed, and I probably just signed my deal, but we still hadn't done the album yet, Guru took me to the Payday, which it was the Milky Way as well. They had two different ones. And he was like, you know, you got to meet this guy that wants to manage me. He said he's always at the spot. He said the difference is, he says kind of like a Studio 54 vibe. He said,
was it the one in the Lower East Side where there was like
where all the cobblestones streets are? Yeah, way down there. Well, it always moved. You know, maybe every 2 weeks or once a month it would move, and you had to know where it was. Yeah, and it was word of mouth. It was almost like whispering. You know, like, hey man, the Payday's gonna be at so and so. Yeah. So just the fact that you had to find out where it is, word of mouth. You might run into somebody that's gonna get into that club and being down. Just happen to run them walking around the city of New York, and they'll be like, yo, Payday's going to be popping in 2 weeks at this spot. Here's a flyer. And it's like, oh, my God. And
Did you DJ the parties back then, too? Because now you know, obviously do full headline sets just as DJ Premier, but were you back then?
No. The first gig I ever DJed was called Mars.
Oh, right.
And that was the new spot after Milky Way and Payday. Right. It was all about Mars over in the Meatpacking District. And I'll never forget, Jam Master Jay walked in, and I was playing Straight Out the Jungle. And the booth is, you know, elevated, and so you could look down at everybody. And Jam Master Jay walked in, which was a big deal. And he walked in, and he's like bopping, and he points. He's like, "Yo, you killing it!" And I'm like, "Ooh!" Jam Master Jay said, "I'm killing it. You don't even know me."
I know.
And shout out to my dancer, H.L. Rocha, who's part of the dancer in Gang Starr. If you look at the Manifest video, and even in the Positivity video, he's the mom that's tied to the ropes.
Right.
That's our dancer. Me and him went to college together.
Yeah.
When I moved permanently, he rode with me, shotgun in my truck. The whole way to New York, all my records got wet completely.
Yeah.
It rained every day.
Yeah.
We drove for like a day and a half straight up the coast of 95, and all my records got wet and water damage. You know,
I heard you were still like drying those records, and even the ones that you made some hits off of, like
yeah,
even
Question
afterwards,
Remains.
Right? Question Remains is
now,
from
you see
that.
how it's going boom, boom, boom.
That's what it's from
yeah,
the water
'cause I
damage
couldn't
record.
get the rest of it peeled off.
Like, I guess you did a few trips in New York and you thought that it wasn't happening. You had to drive all the way back with all the records, right?
Yeah, no, I left him at my grandfather's house, even though he had passed. His wife was still living.
You thought the dream was maybe
Yeah.
dead and you were going back.
And I said, I'm going back one more time, and then everything went the way it went, and it just kept going up from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we talked about this on the Apple show a little bit, but the thing that you just said about Jam Master Jay walking in and pointing to you and saying you're killing it, I mean, it obviously reminds me so quickly of the time when I was DJing the Voodoo album release party and I played the Nika Costa record, Like a Feather, I just produced, and you came in the booth.
Yep.
And you were like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Oh my God, he's gonna be like, who has stole my whole style? I'm gonna go beat someone down." And because you were my hero. Everything that I made was somehow influenced by you. The way that I thought, even though I was doing it wrong, chopping up chops on the pads, the syncopation, everything. Like I copied you so much that I was sort of a clone. Like I had to go then find my own thing. And luckily with Nika, the other producer, Justin, we all added these other elements that luckily made it its own thing. But when you came in the booth and I was playing that record and you told me that you fuck with it and you stayed in the booth, like that was the high point of my career up to then. And I mean, honestly, I would be embarrassed to play some productions that I did from that time because they're just like, you would just sit me down and be like, son, this is really good, but you have to find your own thing now. Like, it's so lucky that I met the Dap Kings, because if I hadn't have found that, I worry that, like, would I just still be making, like, DJ Premier knockoffs for, like, nobody? I know you're so generous and kind with, like, the younger generation producers and people, but it must have been at some point when you just heard everybody taking your shit that you just wanted to be like, guys, you got to go all find your... There's already a DJ Premier.
It became to where it's like, these motherfuckers, but at the same time, I'm like, well, you're the one that's leading the pack of being unique and different. Just like Guru always says, update your formula. Still stay in that funky zone. I remember there was write-ups where it's like, he uses the same hi-hat all the time.
Right.
Then I started doing shit with no hi-hat.
Yeah.
Questlove said it recently, like, when we put out the Gang Starr record, Glowing Mics, a few months back for the posthumous album that we dropped as a bonus cut. And Questlove said, so you you're back to hi-hats.
Yeah.
Because it's like that lets me know, oh, okay, I'm being studied like that. Because I'm not expecting people to be, I'm not expecting people to be studying me like that. So I'm like, oh, okay, now you're saying I use the same hi-hat, cool.
Right.
Where there's nothing there now, and that's going to work, So I'm back to hi-hats. So.
And I even remember being like, oh, he doesn't put the hi-hat where the kick and the snare is because it's already there on the drum. So make sure you program. I mean, listen, all the kind of things. But that thing that really blew my mind was when you started to make the beat and you don't listen to the metronome, the click track, once you start laying the beat.
Right.
And most people do, because then how do you know what tempo you're at?
Right.
But you have some crazy inner clock.
I just know where I wanted to land from the way it's got to sound funky to me. And again, I definitely put that to DJing.
Yeah.
You're a DJ, you understand that science, and I just think it helps more if you're a DJ.
Yeah.
Even if you're a musician as well, DJing's a whole different type of clock.
One of the best yet was such an incredible record. I mean, it's so...
Thank you.
I think I saw you just as you were kind of wrapping it up, and I still can't believe, I mean, you obviously treated Guru's voice and his vocals with such love and care that you never would have known that those were made out even posthumously. And his voice, for somebody who we all know lived a pretty, hard life. He still sounds so young. It doesn't age. I mean, I was thinking that when I was listening to it, I was like, did you pitch his voice up a little? Like, he still sounds incredible.
I took them just like they were. There were certain ones I was like, I wouldn't have cut his vocals that way because, I'm very meticulous about cutting vocals. And then to see some of the reviews like, oh, the album's dope, but the Guru doesn't sound this way or this way on certain ones. It's like, you dummy. We told you.
Of course.
These are vocals that I had nothing to do with, and I'm piecing it together to get a Gang Starr album to the fans.
Yeah, of course.
They deserve another album at least. And it's like, even for me, I wanted another album.
Yeah,
I'm a fan of us. So, yeah, it's like, you know what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I loved about, remember I told you I didn't want to show my process.
Yeah.
You're the first ever that I let you see my process and not see it, but to put it on film and let the world see it. I'm so anti that. I like the mystique.
Yeah.
And I was like, when y'all sent the footage to show me how y'all gonna run it, I was like, wow, I like this.
Great.
I like the coloring, the filtering, everything. It was so accurate where I was like, I don't need nothing changed.
I don't know why I imitated Premier to the extent that I did early in my career. I think we all have heroes, and when we're forming our own sound, in that nascent phase of finding our voice or whatever, we wear our influences on our sleeves, to a fault. Until we hopefully stumble on our own voice. But it takes bravery to find that, to leave behind what's familiar to our ear, and to trust our own gut, our own sounds and productions. And also to come to terms with the fact that there is already one DJ Premier and that position is filled quite well. So why would you want to be a budget carbon copy? In my case, I think I broke out because I was matched with some incredibly inspiring artists. Nika Costa, Lily Allen, Amy Winehouse. Artists who had a clear vision and a sound of their own. They inspired me to break out of what I was doing and evolve into this producer that could match their talent, serve their vision. Premier is very generous about his outsized influence, never deriding the copycats. He just sees it as his responsibility to evolve and lead by example. This one came out great.
I forgot about this, man.
What's that?
They got me, King of Beats, and Run, King of Rock, and Zack, King of Rage.
King of Rage, that's good. I know. It's kind of crazy
Shout to
to
Rob
go.
Stone, man.
Yeah. Well, Rob Stone wanted me to also tell you that you're obviously such a big part of why the magazine's called The Fader because of Dwick from the song Dwick. Take me out with the Fader, like that.
Right. It's the first time I ever met Jonathan Mannion, too.
On that shoot.
Yep. Chairman Mao. Shout to Chairman Mayo, too.
Did he do
Mao.
Did he do the interview?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Story about Chairman Mao. That's my guy. I mean, we go way back. They were all there, man. They were all there since they call us the golden era, they were all there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The series, I really like the series that you've been doing as well. Is it called Floppy Disk? What's it called?
So What's Up?
Oh.
The Salute to the Floppy Disk, yeah.
Okay. I think that's one of the other really admirable things about what you do. You're still a couple million followers on social media without ever selling out. You just do your thing. It's never corny. It doesn't feel like somebody's like, hey, you got to make some videos for the kids.
Right.
But it's really impressive, I think, because there's very few other people from the era that are relevant, haven't changed their shit. Is it important to you, like social media and these things? I know you said you run the Gang Starr account, you run your account.
And even the store.
Yeah.
After we did the verses with me and RZA, and then I did a tribute, I think, to Guru, or it was some type of tribute, I think. Because people are like, man, does somebody do yours? I'm like, no, I do it.
Yeah.
Even what I write, it has to sound like I wrote it.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have their stuff done by people, but I wouldn't feel right having somebody do mine.
I mean, it's crazy what a huge thing Versus has become now, but that was really...
shout to Swiss and Timberland, man.
Oh my God, what did they sell that shit for, like 300 million or something? But yours was one...
They gave us shares the shares in the stocks of it, so...
Great.
Good looking out, guys.
You definitely deserve it because it was very much in the beginning of the pandemic and we all wanted something to watch and something to unite us all, but yours was the first one because I was in England and I was like, I gotta set my alarm clock for 2:30 in the morning and wake up, and it was so... special, and there was no element of like competition. It was just like two people who had a lot of respect for each other, just going through it. Was there any point when it started? I don't know what your relationship with Riz is like. Was there any part beforehand that you were like, I wonder if he's gonna come with the guillotine swords for me. Like what? Like were you thinking about it?
When we lived in Branford Marcellus's brownstone in '92, when we were working on daily operation, Branford was actually just moving when we were stepping the arena. It was already out. He was about to move because he was the new music director for The Tonight Show.
Right.
So after we did Jazz Thing for Spike Lee's Mo Better Blues, we got really close, and he was like, yo, man, I'm going to be moving if y'all looking for a place to move to. During that time, we're all living together, him, his wife, his son, and me and Guru. And the RZA and the GZA used to always come to our house and hang out with us, and we just smoke and listen to stuff. GZA had just left Cold Chillin'. He said, man, I'm going for this hardcore. And RZA told us at the house, I'm starting a crew called the Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he said, I'm getting all my homies from Staten Island. Just going to be part of from Brooklyn, and I'm getting Old Dirty Bastard. And we already knew Old Dirty Bastard in '88 because he was at the New Music Seminar. You know, I have a picture with us when Old Dirty had the stair-step flat top.
He was A-Son Unique.
Yeah, he was A-Son Unique.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we knew him as A-Son. That's why when he does it on Brooklyn Zoo,
Yeah.
it ain't made up. That's what he was.
Yeah.
You know, so we were all cool. And then all of a sudden when Wu-Tang came out, we was like, wow, he said they were going to come out with this. And then we'd have friendly competition. Yo, I got a joint that's coming out. It's going to spank your record that you did with J. Rue. And I'm like, all right, you'll see.
Yeah.
Drop another record. And then, like I said, when Cream came out, I was like, damn, I got a piano joint that's going to smash your record. Yeah. That the original was hard, but wait till you hear this piano shit. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then all of a sudden, ding, 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 ding. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Ooh, Cream is, that is
an all-timer.
Yeah, and then when you find out you have the record, you're like, God damn it, I missed that.
Oh, you had it the whole time?
Yeah. A lot of my mother's records
Yeah.
is standard, especially in a black household.
Yeah.
You're going to pretty much have the same record collection for the most part, especially if it's Al Green, Curtis, Mayfield, Barry White, Aretha, the whole Motown history. Every black family's going to have that in the house. And the Charmels, all the Stack stuff, and that's just standard.
Who were the other producers in that era that there was friendly competition? I imagine like Buck Wild, like Easy Mo.
Yeah, I didn't really know Buck. Yeah, I met him through DITC.
Right.
Obviously he was coming up more when OC and him did the Word
Time's
Life
Up.
album and
Okay.
Time's Up. Yeah. Me and
I
Buck
think
got
everyone
cool.
maybe even thought Time's Up. There's a couple beats like in history, I feel like that everyone assumes that you did it. I feel like Time's Up is one, and I feel like Ante Up is obviously one because
Ante Up
everyone
is because of the clean version. I put my sound effects on it,
Right.
and I mixed the record.
And I think because you already had a history with it at the MOP and it sound,
Yeah, I mixed it with Eddie Sancho at
Right.
D&D, but it was only because Lays, who's handles MOP, Lays was like, yo, we need it right now because Loud wants to get it to radio, to the streets. For some reason, it was a day that DR wasn't around to get it done. And a shout to DR period because he's one of my favorite producers, man.
Of course.
How about some hardcore with Smooth the Hustler, all that stuff. And me and him got to know each other and get cool. And I was just like, yeah, I'll do the mix, and we did it. And then when I did the clean version, I used my sound effects that I'm traditionally known for.
Yeah.
So that made people go, oh, Preem did it. I know those sound effects. And it made me wish I didn't do my sound effects because I didn't want to take credit for doing something that DR did. He deserves the entire credit.
Yeah.
I just mixed it down with Eddie Sancho, and it came out to be a good mix.
Yeah.
And to hear it now to this day, it's like as soon as that and then drops, you're rapper, and it's just, man.
It feels like, with the past few years, the Drake joint and Conway and Westside Gun being really exciting and everything, like, do you feel excited or in a good place about the current state of hip hop and just like working within, what's going on now?
I just feel that no matter what's out there, do what you think is fly if you're that deep rooted into what you're in the music business for. I like to work with everybody. I got a DM from Morris Day, and I've always wanted to meet him. I've always wanted to meet the Tom. I meet Jimmy Jam and ask him advice on stuff. And And I'm a member of the Grammys, and I haven't even utilized my position at the Grammys. I'm like, yo, man, I want to do this and be more involved, and what do I need to do? And he's like, well, you need to do this and this and this, and, you know, this is what you got to do, and if you're going to do this, you got to do this, you know, this stuff to... And I'm like, damn, I can actually text for fucking Jimmy Jam, man. And never met Morris, and he's just like, hey, man, I got this record called Head Rush. I want to see if maybe you could do a remix to it.
Yeah.
And, you know, what's it going to take? And I was like, yo, just send me the acapella. And I'm just like, yo, here's my number. I'm like, I got Morris Day's
Was this just
number.
recently?
Yeah.
It's amazing that you're still like moved by that. Because I mean, obviously, because you are such a fan of music, that's what makes your stuff so great. But it's funny to me think you're still getting geeked out.
Yeah.
I produced this album for this artist, Yebba, who you met recently. And
dude, that shit she did with Drake is so it's just so refreshing. I want to work with her so
bad.
I
mean, obviously she loves you, but the record came out over the weekend, and Greg Fillinganes, who was the only keyboard player other than Stevie Wonder to play on Songs in the Key of Life, and played the solo on
with all the
Don't Stop Till You Get
stuff,
Enough, and Michael Jackson's MD. I get this FaceTime, and he's never, I probably texted him once because we'd done a session, but I never had a FaceTime, and I see, and I'm like, oh, this must be a mistake. And it's FaceTime video, boop, 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 boop. Greg Fillinganes, I answer, and he's like, I don't know what you're eating in your food, young man. It's very sweet because I'm 46 now. He says young man, but he's like, that Yebba record is something I don't know. He's like, that to me is the most exciting musical thing. That's something. He was just being very, but I was like, I can't believe,
Greg
I can't, this is Greg Fillinganes. I cannot wait to just even get off the phone and tell Yebba and James Francis.
I would do the same thing. That's Greg Fillinganes.
Yeah.
And Yebba, she's dope, man.
Yeah.
If I don't get to work with you, Yebba, I'm gonna come to all your shows and just be a troll that they're gonna have to arrest me and put a restraining order on me. I want to work with you, Yebba.
I think she told me that maybe even she used to even take instrumentals of yours off of YouTube and make demos back in the day. So
she worked with Brady too, man. Brady has something with her.
I'm gonna send you the album because I'd love you to check it out. It just came out on Friday.
Oh no, I'll buy it. I'll buy it as soon as I leave here.
I have my fucking therapist at 2:00. I'm so sorry.
Get your therapy on, man. Very important.
Is that all right? I know.
This is therapeutic. Talk about this. That is therapeutic.
Thank you, man. It's such a fucking honor.
I'll say one more thing.
Yeah.
I consider myself a purist.
Yeah.
So the fact that I'm raised on such good music to where before hip hop even came around, that's the reason why I'm very into how hip-hop is preserved. Any new artist that comes out, any new sound that changes, let the young generation have their sound. But that doesn't mean we have to abandon ours just because they have the new sound that's on radio. As a matter of fact, I just saw this. Somebody put a post of this, what Ghostface said, and this is how I feel. In regards to art, he said, I don't give a fuck if you didn't know what I'm talking about. This is art. When you go see a painting on the wall and it looks bugged out because you don't know what the fuck he thinking, because he ain't got no benches, no trees, it's just a splash. That nigga did it and he know what the fuck it is. Yeah. And that's true.
It's beautiful.
That's true. Shout out to GFK, man.
Yeah. I love this quote that you said, actually. You said, I'm indebted to preserving the sound of the city. And I do feel like you're just like, like that's... You're an architect of it. You continue to uphold it. You're on the fucking Mount Rushmore of New York.
Yeah, I make buildings, man. And when I put up a building, it's going to be a building you'll never forget. That's what I'm start saying, man. I make buildings.
Building.
Get your therapy on, Mark, anytime, bro. It's good to see you, man.
Thank you so much.
All right. The doctor has left the building.
Premier, again, his influence is immeasurable. I mean, even as far as this podcast goes, I'm talking over one of his creations at this very moment. And my sign-off line for each episode, well, that comes from the classic DJ Premier produced Gang Starr song Dwick featuring Nice and Smooth. And that line goes, peace out, Premier, take me out with the FADER. So, take me out with the FADER.
Thanks again to DJ Premier for taking the time to talk with us. A special FADER thank you to our Grammy and Oscar Award-winning host, Mark Ronson. Please visit thefader.com/podcasts to read the original cover story and check out a playlist of artists mentioned in this episode. If you like the show, please share it and review us on your favorite podcast app. Please join us next Monday to find out which of your favorite artists will be uncovered next. Executive producers Rob Stone and John Cohen for the FADER Podcast Network. Talent booking, Robert English. Producers Alex Robert Ross and Maddie Russell Shapiro. Directed by Daniel Navetta and produced by the FADER in association with BYT.NYC. Engineered and mixed by David Rogers Barry. Theme music by DJ Premier. For FADER Uncovered merchandise, please visit shop.thefader.com. Thanks, and see you next week.